the US and partners. This is very significant, and the discussions in Geneva took important steps forward, with progress between the US and Ukraine on an updated peace framework. I can reassure the House that work is ongoing to refine this plan. And Mr. Speaker, we're clear about the fundamental principles here, that Ukraine's sovereignty must be maintained, that Ukraine should be able to defend herself in future, and that matters about Ukraine and its future must be determined by Ukraine. We are clear their voice must always be at the heart of the process, and elements relating to Europe and NATO will need the consent of Europe and NATO members. So there's still a long way to go and a tough road ahead, but we're more committed than ever to this cause and to pushing forward on this process. And that's why, Mr. Speaker, later this afternoon, President Macron, Chancellor Merz and I will convene the Coalition of the Willing, which now has 36 members, to discuss how we can advance the peace process and to discuss how we can continue to keep Ukraine in the fight right now. Because, Mr. Speaker, Ukraine continues to hold the line. They continue to mount a fearless defence of their country. And they deserve not just our respect, but our help and our support. After all, it is not just our values that are at risk here, it's our security too. In addition to targeting energy and food prices, Putin continues to seek to undermine our security, including, Mr. Speaker, by sending Russian ships into our waters. The Royal Navy intercepted 2 Russian ships in our waters in the last 2 weeks. So let me assure the House, we are more ready and determined than ever to protect our territory and protect the British people. As we work towards that end, we will never let up on the support that Ukraine needs, the vital defensive capabilities it needs to protect its people, and the economic pressure that we must continue to mount on Russia to cut off the fuel to their war machine. Mr. Speaker, the urgent need to take Russian oil and gas off the global market was something I discussed extensively at the G20. This is vital, especially now, as winter begins to bite in Ukraine and Putin continues his barbaric attacks on civilians and civilian energy infrastructure. Because, Mr. Speaker, as this House knows, and the British people know, there is only one nation that wants this war, only one nation that launched this illegal invasion, and only one nation that deploys a constant barrage aimed at murdering innocent civilians. We saw that again last night, Mr. Speaker, with Russia's strikes on Kyiv. Indeed, in the last week before last night, Russia launched over 1,200 drones and over 60 cruise and ballistic missiles at Ukraine, killing children like 7-year-old Amelia, a Polish citizen, killed alongside her mother by a Russian missile in Ternopil last Wednesday, an attack that took 34 lives in total. And, Mr. Speaker, last night, as a family, we celebrated my daughter's 15th birthday. Later, I saw images on the news of a young girl, about the same age, being pulled from the rubble of a building in Ukraine, where her mother had just been killed. It's abhorrent. It's beyond belief. Yet Ukraine lives this same story every night in their cities and every day on the front line, where so many Ukrainians are killed fighting for their freedom. And, Mr. Speaker, we should not forget that Putin's aggression, his illegal actions, and his total disregard for human life has taken a huge toll on his own people. Thousands of Russian soldiers are killed every single day. 100,000 have been killed attacking Donetsk. In total, more than 1 million Russians have been killed or injured, all because of the depraved ambitions of one man. So, Mr. Speaker, we say again, this country will never falter in our support for the Ukrainian people. We will maintain a unity of purpose with our allies, and we will focus on delivering the calm, serious leadership that is needed to advance a just and lasting peace for Ukraine and indeed for the whole of Europe. Mr. Speaker, let me now turn to my broader discussions at the G20. I took the opportunity in South Africa to raise the ongoing and utterly horrifying situation in Sudan. We are working with our partners to break the restrictions on humanitarian aid and demand accountability. We must rally global pressure to stop the slaughter, achieve a sustained ceasefire, and ultimately to deliver a transition to civilian rule. Mr. Speaker, in South Africa, I also chaired the Global Fund replenishment alongside President Ramaphosa, leading the charge in the global fight against AIDS, TB, and malaria. Work that has already saved over 70 million lives. Yet, Mr. Speaker, malaria still kills a child under the age of 5 nearly every minute. 4,000 adolescent girls and young women still contract HIV every week. And TB remains the world's single deadliest infectious disease, even though we've had a cure for nearly a century. So we will keep driving this project forward because it's the right thing to do and because it helps protect the United Kingdom from future pandemics and health emergencies. Mr. Speaker, a central priority at the G20 was delivering economic security and opportunity, as it is at every international meeting I attend. A strong economy allows us to be strong in the world. Economic security is national security. So, Mr. Speaker, I can tell the House we delivered for the British people this weekend, including deals with South Africa for British firms to upgrade their railways and submarines, a £370 million deal for Rolls-Royce to supply jet engines to Algeria, and a £4 billion deal with Indonesia for new ships, delivering 1,000 jobs in Rosyth, Plymouth and Bristol, and delivering, if I may say, another rebuke to all the people who prematurely wrote off British shipbuilding. Mr. Speaker, we can only achieve these things, we can only deliver for the British people by working with our partners. And I think this is a moment to raise our sights. Mr. Speaker, the House will recall that it was when the global financial crisis struck that the G20 showed its full potential, when my predecessor, Gordon Brown, marshalled a global response to that crisis to protect the savings and finances of the British people. And so, in this moment of growing fragility and crisis around the world, it is time once again to take a more purposeful, unified approach, focused on global growth and stability. I called for a response based on the right balance of investment and fiscal discipline, open markets, reforming the global trading system, and tackling the cost of living crisis. That approach was echoed by the leaders' declaration from Johannesburg. And, Mr. Speaker, I'm also pleased to say that the summit confirmed that the UK will take on the presidency of the G20 in 2027, the first time it's returned to the UK since 2009. It will be a proud moment for our country, part of our work to restore Britain's international leadership, which was neglected for so long. And we will use that presidency to drive the agenda that I've been talking about today, to drive growth and opportunity, to create jobs, cut the cost of living, and fundamentally strengthen the economic security of the British people. That is what we're doing at home and abroad, and I commend this statement to the House.
Kemi Badenoch, the Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, can I thank the Prime Minister for advance sight of his statement. We are proud to stand shoulder to shoulder with Ukraine, and our support remains unwavering. Ukraine is battling the most flagrant breach of territorial integrity in Europe in recent times. We must never forget that this war was started by Putin, who is trying to extinguish a democracy on our own continent. It is important that we stand together to defend the principle that aggressors should not succeed. The previous Conservative government led Europe in support for Ukraine. We were the first country to provide modern Western main battle tanks and to gift munitions and Storm Shadow missiles. We led the way on sanctions and trained tens of thousands of Ukrainian soldiers on UK soil. It is now incumbent on this government to leverage British influence at this crucial time for the West. Putin's relentless bombardment of Kyiv and KGB-style negotiating tactics show he is not serious about peace, which is why Russia must not be welcomed back into the international fold without a comprehensive peace agreement. So will the Prime Minister rule out support for readmitting Russia to the G7? We all want this terrible war to end. And as the Prime Minister rightly said, elements of that draft 28-point plan were unacceptable. Conservatives are clear that the blanket surrender of Ukrainian territory would mean rewarding Putin's unprovoked aggression. What is the government's position on reports that Ukraine's territorial integrity is on the table? Because if Putin is seen to emerge stronger from these negotiations, all our potential adversaries will be emboldened. Be in no doubt, Mr. Speaker, the axis of authoritarian states is collaborating to destabilize the West, aided by China, with Iran providing weapons and North Korea providing troops for Putin. It is precisely for these reasons that the government must continue to work extremely closely with the US and to understand their objectives. Parties like the Lib Dems and the Greens, who are encouraging us to decouple from the US, are putting their anti-American prejudice above national security. But, Mr. Speaker, given that in the last fortnight, the Royal Navy has intercepted 2 Russian ships in our waters, and with Russian spy ships pointing lasers at RAF pilots, it is a disgrace that Reform are still blaming NATO for Russia's aggression. Although perhaps it should come as no surprise when their former leader in Wales was sent to prison last week for taking bribes from Putin. Earlier this year, Mr. Speaker, many countries came together to form the Coalition of the Willing, pledging to strengthen support for Ukraine. Can the Prime Minister update us on the planning and readiness of the Coalition of the Willing? What is its scope and terms of mission? And what can the Prime Minister tell us about a counter-proposal that is reportedly being submitted by the EU? Mr. Speaker, to stand with Ukraine, we need to know we can also stand on our own 2 feet. Last week, the Commons Defence Select Committee warned that Britain is unprepared for a major attack and the government is making glacial progress towards conflict readiness. So it is concerning that reports indicate the MOD faces a potential budget cut this financial year of £2.6 billion. Can the Prime Minister confirm whether this is true or false? Meanwhile, the EU is reportedly demanding nearly €7 billion for the UK to buy into its defence fund. Conservatives warned that this would happen. At the time the UK-EU reset deal was being negotiated, the Shadow Defence Secretary said that Labour had given away 12 years of British fishing rights in exchange for nothing. He was right. Will the Prime Minister rule out paying the EU for access to SAFE? Mr. Speaker, it is extremely disappointing that Europe is still buying Russian oil and gas. Moscow should be denied safe harbours for its tankers and profits, and Europe should ban Russian oil and gas sooner than its current 2027 deadline. I believe the Prime Minister agrees with that sentiment, so what pressure will he put on European countries to stop them buying Russian oil and gas? Mr. Speaker, the UK's genuinely world-leading support has made a material difference to Ukraine's ability to fight back against Russia's illegal invasion, support that I will remind the Prime Minister began under the Conservatives. Let's not forget that in 2022, Russia thought it could capture Kyiv and subjugate Ukraine within days. So let's wake up and face that threat from Russia. So finally, Can the Prime Minister reassure the House that we will be boosting our own defence capabilities as well as using our influence to ensure that secure future for Ukraine?
Minister.
Well, can I start by thanking her for her support on Ukraine? I think it is really important that we stay united in this House. And can I readily acknowledge the role of the previous government in leading on Ukraine and, in fact, in bringing the whole House together on this issue, which it did for a number of years and allowed us a platform on which to build the support that we are now putting in place. In relation to membership of the G7, G8, look, the focus at the moment is on a ceasefire, so anything along those lines is a long way off. But, you know, we have to remember that Putin is the aggressor here. He is the one who started this war. On territorial integrity, the sovereignty of Ukraine is paramount, and that's why any questions about the future of Ukraine must be determined by Ukraine, and that is why I've been speaking frequently to both President Trump and President Zelensky. President Zelensky probably 5 or 6 times in the last 2 or 3 days on a whole range of issues. Can I join her in her comments about reform, because it is shocking that a senior official, the leader in Wales, has been jailed for over 10 years, a very significant sentence, for pro-Russia bribes. That is extraordinary. And that is why I say, and I say again, there should be that the reform leadership should have the courage to launch an investigation. How on earth did that happen in their party? And what other links are there? But today, and this statement and the question across the House will reinforce once again that reform with their pro-Putin approach would have absolutely no role in bringing allies together on important issues across the globe. Mr. Speaker, she asks about the coalition of the willing. 9 months ago, President Macron and I brought the coalition of the willing together. There are now 36 like-minded countries that meet and discuss frequently and align our positions and our support. That is a considerable achievement, and we have plans in relation to security guarantees, in relation to air, sea and land. Mr. Speaker, on the text of the agreement that's being worked on in Geneva, there was an intensive discussion about this, as she would have expected at the G20, involving a number of key allies, both the E3 plus key coalition of willing allies, and the strong consensus was that we should work with the text that's in existence, unacceptable though some parts of it are, because other parts are essential, rather than a different text, and that is the process that's going on in Geneva, and I think that's the right approach. On defence spending, I've made my position clear, and it goes with the strategic review of defence as well as to how we take that forward. The safe negotiations are going on with the EU in the usual way, and one of the commitments I made in relation to our reset with the EU was that we would do it by quiet diplomacy rather than shouting from megaphones across the channel. On oil and gas, she asks, and this is really important, we are taking every opportunity to have extensive discussions to take Russian oil and gas off the market. This has to be done across Europe. It has to be done beyond Europe. There are discussions I've had beyond Europe on this issue. It is vital that we press ahead, and we are doing so and taking every opportunity. But can I return to where I started? I do genuinely think it's important in this House that we're united on Ukraine. The only winner, if we divide on party political grounds, will be Putin. And I again recognise the work and the lead that the previous government took, which I was proud to support in opposition. I'm proud to take that forward as Prime Minister. I'm grateful for the support that we're getting from the opposition.
Chair of the Select Committee, Dame Emily Thornberry.
Mr. Speaker, can I begin by complimenting the Prime Minister on his work on the international stage? But ask him, is he aware that yesterday a statement was put out by the 22 chairs of the Foreign Affairs Committees from parliaments from across the whole of Europe, and we made it clear that we are united in the belief that Ukraine's sovereignty is not just vitally important for brave Ukrainians, but it is vital for the continued security of Europe too. And so we are very pleased to hear from the Prime Minister when he assures the House that any plan that is to be agreed will be nothing about Ukraine without Ukraine, but can he also assure the House there will be nothing about Europe without Europe?
Well, can I thank her for her question, but also reassure her I did see that letter that was put out yesterday. And she's absolutely right that this conflict affects Ukraine and Ukraine's sovereignty, but it also affects the whole of Europe, including the United Kingdom, both in our values and our security, and materially in relation to things like the cost of living and the price of energy. Nothing about Ukraine without Ukraine, nothing about Europe without Europe, nothing about NATO without NATO are key principles that sit behind the work that we're doing.
Daisy Cooper, Deputy Leader of the Liberal Democrats.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and may I thank the Prime Minister for advance view of his statement. If this is the endgame for Putin's illegal and murderous war, then we have one chance to get it right. One chance to safeguard the future of Ukraine and one chance to safeguard the future of Europe. The stakes could not be higher. Many of us fear that President Trump is gearing up to betray the rights of Ukrainians. Ukrainians who have fought valiantly in the face of war crimes, torture and the abduction of thousands of children. The White House has tried to deny that Trump's original 28-point plan was a Russian wish list, but that is precisely what it was. We Liberal Democrats welcome the statement from the Prime Minister that Ukraine's sovereignty must be maintained. So when the Prime Minister speaks with the Coalition of Willing this afternoon, will he relay that all major parties in this House agree with him in unequivocally ruling out any proposals that limit Ukraine's sovereignty to defend itself now or in the future must be ruled out, including its right to join defence alliances like NATO? Mr. Speaker, will the Prime Minister also offer his support and that of the Coalition of Willing to join President Zelensky for any future negotiations with President Trump, so President Zelensky doesn't have to suffer the indignity of being bullied by Trump on his own once again, and so that Europe can show a strong and united stand? Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister is absolutely right to request that Reform UK conducts an investigation into pro-Russian bribes.